Hi guys, John here. So just making a quick video to show you some of the new features for Proximal One. So this is update version 1.05. Hopefully it's not going to be a really long video like the last one, because there's not as much to cover, but there are some cool things that I want to show you. So in this level, I'll just quickly explain what we've got here. We've got a drum track which is set to trigger right from the start. We've got this one which is set to trigger by the collision box, and the same as this one and this one. And these three are also set to trigger the next nearest instance when they are set to stop. Okay, so what's going to happen is the player is going to come out of there, it will trigger the instance to stop, and then it will trigger the nearest instance to it that's set to receive a nearest instance trigger. So in that case it's this one, or this one, right? And then we've got this one here which is just the default sound. So if I hit play now, so you hear that, that is the default audio patch loop. Okay, so the first thing that I want to quickly go over is this quick configuration menu here. We had this in the last update, but it was kind of sort of rushed last minute, so a little bit more work has been done to it. We've got not a ton of things, but just there's a couple of more audio presets and some other options like reset all sound design variables. So a sound design variable would be something that actually changes the sound, for example, like filter cutoff, that sort of thing. So originally, how this was set up, if you loaded one of the audio patches like this procedural melody as like a starting point, what would happen is it would only change the settings that were different from default values. It wouldn't actually set everything back to its default values before. So let's say that you added an instance to the project and you went through and changed a ton of the settings, and then you tried to load this one. It wouldn't change all of the settings back. It would only change the ones that were actually different from the defaults. So you might not get the result that you're after when you click on that. So now what we've got is we've got this option here, reset sound design variables to default before loading patch. So before loading preset, sorry. So when that's ticked and you select one of the ones with AP in front of it, it's just going to restore everything to its default value before it loads it. So your sound is actually going to be loaded correctly. Okay, but you've got that also, the ability to disable that. So let's say that you did have some settings that you wanted to keep when you loaded that preset, you could untick that and it would only overwrite the ones necessary to create that sound. The next one is kind of similar thing. We've got this one, reset proximity variables when loading preset. So proximity variable would be something like the filter proximity settings, where you apply the filter cutoff and in different ways across different axes, that sort of thing. Or maybe you're using the custom proximity variables, so the actual custom proximity stuff. If you had that unticked when you loaded the patch, it wouldn't overwrite those settings, but when you've got it ticked, it would overwrite everything related to the proximity stuff. Okay, so yeah, just a couple more options there which you might find useful. Actually, we can actually give that a go. So if we've got this one selected, so if we just hit that one, trance arpeggiator, hopefully I'm going to make some more of these presets at some point, but they do take a long time to do because there's a lot of variables that you've got to individually set and creating different functions for. So let's just hear that. So yeah, so that's in this this one here. So currently the trigger method for that is use start and collision box triggers. That's why it plays as soon as you hit play. But we're going to actually change that to show you one of the new features. But for now, just for a sec, I'm just going to completely bypass that instance, and we'll have a listen to this instance here and then this one here and see what they do. So if I hit play now, so if I come into here, this is actually set up to have an 8-bar quantization, so it's going to trigger on every 30-second beat, or when it gets to the 33rd beat. And there we go. And if we come out of here, it's gonna trigger that one over there. Okay. I'm gonna cover this in a moment. I'll come back to that and explain what these lines are. But I just wanted you to hear these two different sounds, what they're currently doing at the moment. So one of the new features that we've got is the ability to layer instances and just use the triggering from one instance to trigger other instances at the same time. So for example, with this one, when this one starts to play, we can have it so that other ones that are like slaves to this one also play at the same time. So this one would be considered the master, and if I just if we get back to that one, disable the bypass, and this one, we're going to set this one to be the slave. Okay, so what's going to happen is when this one plays, this one's going to play at the same time. So how we set that up, so if you go over to the master and in trigger settings, if you come down to where it says send slave trigger, if you make sure that that's ticked, and then we've got this setting here, slave channel, and currently I've got that set to 25. The default value is 0, but if we keep that set to 25 just now, and you can put in any number that you want. Now on the slave instance, at the top where we've got trigger method, if we change this to slave to other instance, and then down the bottom where we've got our slave channel, if we set that to the same channel number as the master, then this one will get triggered when this one plays. We've also got this setting, slave inherits quantization settings. So as I said earlier, that's set to an 8-bar quantization. Right before it starts to play, it sends out the signal to this one to cue it up. And when it does that, it's also going to set all the quantization settings for this instance to match the settings of this one. It also sends out a bunch of other settings which are necessary for it to mimic its behavior. For example, when it does that, it's going to send out its transform settings. So what you'll notice is right before it plays, it's suddenly going to jump location, and so this one's suddenly going to move over here. And the reason we do that is because then if we're in this area, then the player can still affect this one based on whatever proximity settings you've got. And it's also going to be able to use the collision box. The slave's going to use its own collision box to determine when the player leaves it. Okay, and the cool thing about this is you can have more than one instance set to the master of the same slave. So for example, we could have this one be the master to it as well, and so when this one triggers it to play, it's gonna jump over there as well. Anyway, let's just have a look and see what actually happens when I hit play at the moment. So you can see it's over there. If we come into here and wait a moment for this one to trigger, we should see that jump location. You see? Now you can have several different instances with the same slave channel, and they will all do the same thing. They will all jump over to this spot. So if we come out of here now, it should stop when that instance stops. It's got a fade out on it, but that's in your kill audio settings. You can change that, but it does work with the fade outs as well, which is pretty cool. And you can see the auto switch trigger system is working as well. It's switching between instances. So something that is pretty cool is that if we've got this one, as you can see, it triggers that one. You can actually have both of them as the master to that, and it still works if they're played in consecutive order. So basically how it works is it checks if the master has changed at the moment the player leaves, and if the master has changed, where it checks if basically with the player leaves, it determines which one's the nearest instance, and if that one that's the nearest instance is also the master to it, then it prevents it from stopping. That's basically how it works. So we can have a look at that working now. So if I change the channel number on that one to match, and then when we hit play and just trigger it, we've got to wait a moment for its quantization. And there we go. And if I come out now, you see that it jumps over to that other location. And it's still playing. So yeah, it's a great way of just like layering up different sounds without worrying about the triggering of them, because the auto switch trigger system works really well and it just triggers one instance. Okay, so what I want to explain next is what all those lines were. So with our nearest instance trigger system, you'll notice that we've got that instance there, and that's actually nearer to this instance than that one is, but it didn't trigger it. And the reason why is because we've got a new feature that can basically prevent instances from being triggered if they're occluded from sight. which could be really useful if you've got a level that's got different rooms and things in it, or corridors that run alongside of each other for different parts of your map. And maybe you've got two instances that are actually quite close in location, but you don't want them to be triggered you don't want them to be triggered in order. You might only want them to be triggered when the player's camera can actually see it, and so that's what that does. So if I click on, say, this instance, for example, and then in our trigger settings we've got this one, nearest instance excludes occluded instances. So with that ticked, and that's actually the default setting now, but you can change it per instance. So with that ticked, it will only trigger something when you can actually see it through the player's camera, and this one's actually set up the same way, and so is this one. So let's just have a look at it. So I'm just going to wait a moment for this to be triggered. And if we come out now, the auto switch should trigger it. And if I come closer to this one, you see it's triggered that one because we're nearer to that one and we can see it. And if we come over this way now, it's going to trigger that one. So the lines are a debug option, okay? So if I just come out of it. So we've got a few settings for this in the clock blueprint. They're global settings, so they affect all the instances that are using it. So if we click on that, if I come down to here where we've got nearest instance triggering global options, the lines are caused by this draw debug for nearest instance line of sight, and its default is none, but we've currently got that set to persistent. So when it's set to persistent, you'll see the line of sight that it's using to determine if it's visible or not. So this works by using the line trace by channel node. And how it's working, it's set up on a for loop system. So what it does, when it's determining which instance it can send a trigger to, it will first check if there is a line of sight to the center of each instance that is set up to receive a nearest instance trigger. And if it finds that there is a trace to the center visibly, then it's going to pick that instance to trigger. If it fails to find a trace, then it's going to use a for loop system to basically check through 125 different points, or up to 125 different points around it. And that's why you saw all those little squares with the lines. So basically it's not going to check all 125 points, it's going to check up to. So as soon as it finds a trace, then it's determined that that instance is visible. Okay, so yeah, that's how that works. So we can have a look at that again, actually, if we just run through. So let's just wait a moment for it to trigger the stop and search for its nearest instance. So you see all the different points. You see that one's only got one line because it immediately determined that that was the one that we could see the center of it. If we come around here, you see the lines are red. That means that it hit this wall, which is occluding it. Also, you'll notice that the lines that it creates are sort of they kind of originate from behind the physical player. So basically they're originating from the camera's location. So depending on the focal length of the camera, it might seem a little bit further back. But yeah, that's basically what that's doing. Okay. So where's that? Where's the settings gone? So just quickly mention what these other two are. So nearest instance occlusion actors to ignore. So let's say you had like some characters or something in the world, and you didn't want those to block the line of sight of your audio when you're determining it to be triggered. You could select it. If you add an element, then you could add the eyedropper, and you could just select the actor and the level that you don't want to use as an occluder. So you've got a little bit of flexibility with this system. And then we've got this one, trace channel used by nearest instance triggering. So default is visibility, which works really well. But let's say that you set up your own trace channel in your project settings for setting up different collisions and things for different types of actors. You could, when you set up your own trace channel, it'll appear in this menu, and you can select that as well. I'm not an expert on that. I don't know all about it. You'll find better videos on YouTube if you want to learn more, but I've added that option because it seemed like a sensible thing to do. Okay. And yeah, I think that's it really. Not a lot else has changed. A couple of little bugs that were fixed. If you check the changelog on the marketplace, you'll see more info about it. But yeah, I hope that helps. So yeah, just want to say thanks to everyone that supported me so far doing this. It really makes a difference at the moment. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. And I'll continue to develop this and make improvements to it over the coming months wherever I can. So if you've got any suggestions or any issues that you've encountered, then definitely let me know about it. Otherwise I might it might be something that I've overlooked. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching, and see you later. Cheers.